The gravy boat passed from hand to hand around the mahogany table, but I barely noticed. I was too focused on keeping my expression neutral as my mother-in-law, Eleanor Blackwood, held court at the head of the table, her voice carrying that special blend of authority and condescension she'd perfected over 40 years of Thanksgiving dinners. Success in business requires a certain constitution, Eleanor announced, her pearl necklace catching the light from the chandelier. Some women have it. Most don't. They're simply not built for that level of pressure. Her eyes found mine across the table, lingering just long enough to make her point clear. I continued cutting my turkey with mechanical precision, each movement carefully controlled. "Oh, I don't know, Mom," my husband James offered weakly. "Lots of women are crushing it in business these days." Eleanor's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "Of course, dear. But there's a difference between having a little job and building something substantial. It requires a certain masculine energy. At least Sophia can cook," James's sister Patricia chimed in, gesturing at the side dishes I'd contributed. "That stuffing is divine. Some women are meant for the boardroom, others for the kitchen. Nothing wrong with knowing your place." Know your place. The words echoed in my ears as I reached for my water glass with steady hands. 3 years of family dinners had taught me the rhythm of these subtle assassinations. They always came wrapped in compliments about my cooking or my appearance, as if those were consolation prizes for my failure to be worthy of real respect. "Speaking of the boardroom," Eleanor continued, "did you all hear about the Davidson acquisition? Brilliant move by their CEO. Now that's what I call business acumen." I almost smiled. The Davidson acquisition. If only she knew. "Sophia, dear, could you get more wine from the kitchen?" Eleanor's request came with that particular smile that meant it wasn't really a request. "Of course," I said, rising from my seat. My voice was perfectly pleasant, giving nothing away. In the kitchen, I took a moment to breathe. Through the doorway, I could hear the conversation continuing, Eleanor regaling the table with stories of successful businessmen she knew, all while making pointed comments about how some people were better suited to supportive roles. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Marcus, my CFO. "Everything's set for Monday's announcement. The Times wants an exclusive. You sure you don't want to give your family a heads up?" I typed back, "I'm sure." Returning with the wine, I caught the tail end of Patricia's story about her own career in real estate. And that's why emotional intelligence is so important. Men handle the big deals, but women excel at the relationship building. The soft skills. "Exactly," Eleanor agreed, accepting the wine I poured with a regal nod. "It's about understanding our natural strengths. Sophia, for instance, has made James such a comfortable home. That's a skill in itself." "Thank you, Eleanor," I said, retaking my seat. "I do enjoy creating comfortable environments." James squeezed my hand under the table, mistaking my calm for hurt feelings. He had no idea that I'd spent the last 18 months creating a very different kind of environment, one with conference rooms and profit margins and a systematically executed plan to acquire our biggest competitor. "How's your little startup going?" Patricia asked, her tone suggesting she'd just remembered I worked at all. "Still doing. What was it?" "Consulting. Logistics solutions," I corrected mildly. "It's going well, thank you." "That's nice," she said, already losing interest. "Must be lovely to have a flexible schedule. Perfect for when you and James start having children." Eleanor perked up at this. "Yes, how is that planning going? You're not getting any younger, Sophia. 32 is already pushing it." "We're focusing on other things right now," James said, trying to deflect. "Other things?" Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "What could be more important than family? Unless..." She turned to me with faux concern. "You're not one of those women who prioritizes career over children, are you?" I smiled, the same practice smile I'd worn in a dozen board meetings while negotiating deals worth more than everyone at this table would see in a lifetime. "I believe in being intentional about timing, Eleanor. Everything has its season." She shared a look with Patricia that said they'd be discussing this later. "Well, I suppose your little business doesn't require that much attention anyway. Not like a real corporation. Little business." If she only knew that my little business had just leveraged a $300 million credit line to execute a hostile takeover that would make us the third largest logistics firm in the country. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of similar comments. Eleanor shared stories of her friend's son who'd just made partner at his firm. Now there's ambition. While Patricia discussed her husband's promotion. He's being groomed for CEO, you know. Each anecdote came with a pointed look in my direction, a reminder of what real success looked like. By the time we reached dessert, my homemade pumpkin pie, which Patricia praised as better than a bakery's, I'd been relegated to the margins of every conversation about business, redirected instead to discussions of recipes and home decorating. Sophia makes the best pie crust, James announced proudly, as if this might somehow balance the scales of his family's dismissal. It's all about keeping the butter cold, I said, playing my part, and not overworking the dough. See, Eleanor smiled approvingly. Everyone has their talents. Sophia's just happened to be domestic. There's honor in that. Honor. I thought about the honors I'd received that they knew nothing about. The Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year nomination. The Forbes 30 Under 30 selection they'd somehow missed because they'd never thought to Google my maiden name, which I used professionally. Speaking of talents, Patricia said, did I mention Bradley's being featured in the Financial Times next week? A whole profile on rising stars in finance. How wonderful, Eleanor beamed. The Financial Times. Now that's prestigious. Imagine having your picture in a publication like that. I took a small bite of pie, savoring the cinnamon and nutmeg. That does sound impressive. After dinner, I found myself in the kitchen again, washing dishes while the others retired to the living room for coffee and continued conversation. Through the doorway, I could hear Eleanor holding court about the decline of traditional values and how modern women had lost sight of what really mattered. James appeared beside me, picking up a dish towel. I'm sorry about them, he said quietly. You know they don't mean anything by it. I know exactly what they mean by it, I replied, scrubbing a plate with perhaps more force than necessary. They're just traditional. They don't understand your work. I turned to look at him. Do you understand my work, James? He paused, dish towel in hand. Of course I do. You help companies with their shipping and stuff. Shipping and stuff. 3 years of marriage. And that's how he described building a company that employed 400 people and generated $50 million in annual revenue. Right, I said, turning back to the dishes. Shipping and stuff. Come on, don't be like that. You know I support you. I know you think you do. He looked hurt, but before he could respond, Eleanor called from the living room. James, darling, come here. Patricia's showing us Bradley's investment portfolio. He squeezed my shoulder and left me alone with the dishes and my thoughts. Later, as we drove home in silence, I thought about timing, about patience, about the satisfaction of proving people wrong not with words, but with irrefutable facts. Monday was only 4 days away. You were quiet tonight, James observed as we pulled into our driveway. I was enjoying listening to your family's wisdom about success and women's limitations. He sighed. They're not trying to be mean, sophomore. They just have different ideas about things. Old-fashioned ideas. Tell me something, I said as we walked to the front door. What do you tell people I do for a living? I tell them you run a logistics company. And then what? When they ask follow-up questions. He was quiet for a moment. I usually change the subject. It's complicated to explain. No, James. It's not complicated. You just don't think it's important enough to bother understanding. We went to bed without resolving anything, but I wasn't upset. In 4 days, understanding would be unavoidable. The weekend passed slowly. I worked from my home office, finalizing details with my legal team, reviewing the press release, ensuring every piece was in place. James assumed I was handling routine paperwork. He brought me coffee and sandwiches, playing the supportive husband while having no idea he was watching history being written in our spare bedroom. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I stood at our bedroom window, looking out at the quiet suburban street, and thought about every dismissive comment, every condescending smile, every time I'd been asked to fetch wine or clear plates while the real adults discussed business. By 5 a.m. Monday, I was in the office. My executive team was already assembled, everyone vibrating with the nervous energy that comes before a major announcement. We'd worked 18 months for this moment, through late nights and impossible deadlines and negotiations that would have broken lesser teams. Everyone ready? I asked, looking around the conference room at the faces of people who'd believed in me when nobody else had bothered to look past my exterior. Ready to make history, Marcus grinned. At exactly 9 a.m., the press release went live. By 9:15, my phone was exploding with calls I didn't answer. By 9:30, the Financial Times had updated their homepage with the breaking news. Tech Logistics acquires Davidson Corp in $500 million deal, 32-year-old CEO Sofia Martinez becomes youngest woman to lead major industry player. There it was. My face on the Financial Times website, right where Eleanor had said it was so prestigious to be. I turned off my phone and focused on the integration meetings scheduled throughout the day. There would be time for personal satisfaction later. Right now, there was a company to run. It wasn't until 6 p.m. that I finally turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls. Over 100 texts. The first voicemail was from James, his voice a mixture of confusion and awe. Sophia? The news is everywhere. Why didn't you tell me? Call me back. Please. The second was from Patricia. I don't understand. The Financial Times says they must have made a mistake. Call me. But it was Eleanor's voicemail that made me smile. Sophia, dear. There seems to be some confusion. The news is reporting. Well, it's obviously a misunderstanding. Please call immediately. I didn't call anyone back. Instead, I went home to my empty house. James had texted that he was at his parents', trying to explain, and poured myself a glass of the good wine. The wine I'd never opened at family dinners because I was always the one serving it to others. Tuesday morning brought a new wave of press coverage. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature on the quiet rise of Sofia Martinez. Forbes called me the stealth CEO who came out of nowhere. TechCrunch ran with how one woman built a logistics empire while everyone underestimated her. That evening, James came home with flowers and a shell-shocked expression. My mother is processing, he said carefully. Processing what? That some women are meant for success after all. He winced. She says she always knew you were capable of great things. Did she? Must have been an internal knowing, because she never mentioned it out loud. Sophia, do you know what the worst part is, James? It's not your mother's condescension or your sister's patronizing comments. It's that you never once defended me. Not once in 3 years did you stand up and say, actually, my wife is brilliant. Let me tell you about her company. He sank into a chair. I didn't realize. No, you didn't. We talked late into the night. About respect and partnership and what it meant to truly see someone. About how I'd built an empire while he'd been content to let his family believe I was playing at business between baking pies. Wednesday brought an unexpected visitor. Eleanor stood on my doorstep, her usual perfect composure slightly cracked. May I come in? I led her to the living room, the one she'd always complimented for its homey touches, while missing the strategic planning that had happened on this very couch. I owe you an apology, she began, which must have cost her more than my company's entire acquisition budget. Do you? I misjudged you. Clearly. I waited, saying nothing. I suppose I have some outdated ideas about women in business, she continued, each word seemingly pulled from her against her will. You have outdated ideas about women, period. She flinched but nodded. Perhaps. I was raised to believe. I know what you were raised to believe, Eleanor. The question is whether you're capable of growth. We sat in silence for a moment before she asked, how did you do it? Without any of us knowing. The same way I've done everything else in your presence. Quietly, competently, and without expecting recognition from people who'd already decided I wasn't worth noticing. She absorbed this with surprising grace. I see. Well, I suppose I should congratulate you on your success. I don't need your congratulations. I never did. What I needed was basic respect, and failing that, I settled for being underestimated. It's actually quite advantageous, being invisible. You can accomplish remarkable things when nobody's watching. After she left, I sat in my living room thinking about success and vindication and whether they were the same thing. My phone rang, another interview request, another opportunity to tell my story. But I was tired of talking. Tomorrow, there would be a company to run, employees to lead, new markets to conquer. The headlines would fade, but the work would continue. That evening, James found me in my office, reviewing integration plans. Patricia called, he said. She wants to know if you're hiring. I looked up from my laptop. Is she qualified? She has a real estate license. That's not what I asked. He smiled ruefully. No, I suppose it's not. Tell her we post all positions on our website. She can apply like everyone else. Fair enough. He paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry it took headlines to make me see what was right in front of me. Work in progress, I said, echoing his words about his family. He nodded and left me to my work. Later that night, I pulled up the Financial Times article one more time. There was my photo, professional and confident, right where Eleanor had said it was so prestigious to be. The headline read, "The CEO who cooked her way to the top while building a logistics empire." It wasn't the headline I would have chosen. Even now, they had to mention my cooking. But it would do. Let them focus on the pies and the stuffing. While they were debating whether women could have it all, I'd be busy taking it. My phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Davidson Integration meeting at 7 a.m. Prepared to brief their executive team. I smiled and typed back, "Ready. Some women are meant for success, after all." The next Thanksgiving would be different. But that was a year away. For now, there was an empire to run, and I had exactly the right constitution for it.